What's the difference between Catholicism and evangelical Christianity?
All right, they gave me this one too, but I was looking, man, I have the least cool shoes of anybody on stage. And I know we're not supposed to be drifting mentally when we're talking, but I couldn't help but think that. Anyway. What's the difference between Catholicism and, okay, so here's what's funny. I don't know why we do this. Everybody kind of does this. We treat religions, we treat faith like we treat sports teams. That it's like, if you're not wearing the same jersey as me, we can't be friends. Like, I'm from North Carolina. Sarah and I, we talked about this. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm from an area of North Carolina where you either root for Duke or UNC. You know what I'm talking about. And it's so funny because I can remember being a kid, and it was like anybody who wore a Duke shirt, you would yell at them. I mean, really think about that. Think about it for just a moment. You would yell at them for wearing a shirt that had a different shade color of blue than the shirt you were wearing. You're yelling at somebody for a color. You're yelling at somebody for a shade. Like, how insane is that? But we kind of do that, right, as sports teams. You guys know Michigan, Ohio State. There's all sorts of stuff like that. Sometimes, I think, as Christians, sometimes we can kind of look at other religions and be like, well, I mean, you got it wrong. So we almost take this subconscious posture towards other people who believe different things, that it's an inferior belief. But here's the reality for a Christian. You didn't write it. It's Christianity, meaning Christianity, right? Not me-ianity. Do you know what I'm saying? You submit to that as a Christian. You submit to the teachings of Jesus, to the truth of God. That's what you do. And so before I even dig into that, I just want to make sure that as we ask questions like this, and even as we posture this and interact with different people who believe different things, see people as people first so you can love them enough to have an honest conversation, not in a way that looks at them through the lens of maybe what they believe, but maybe who made them. And so as we dig into the question functionally, I'll tell you this, Catholicism, we got a lot more in common than we don't. I'll tell you that. And so I mean, you know, if you have a Catholic friend, they're still going to believe in God. They're still going to believe Jesus is a deity, right? They're still going to believe these things. The difference between Catholicism and evangelical Christianity, it's a funny word, evangelical Christianity. I'm just going to call it Jesus follower because evangelical Christianity has taken way too much of a hashtag negative tone on the internet these days. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I went to a school that personally went through some of that. So I would just say Catholicism, Jesus follower. A lot of times in Catholic faith, your faith in God will grow based off of the things that you are required to do. You're going to get more of a requirement to follow God, whereas Christianity is going to be a response to follow Jesus because of God's love. It's what separates Christianity from every other religion on the planet. Religion, in any other facet, and you can look it up, doesn't matter what it is, it says, here's God, here's you. So you figure out a way to get to God. You have to get to God. Christianity is the only one in the history of the world that says, no, God made a way to you through Jesus. It's the only thing that separates those two. Catholicism is carried through the ages from men who are called popes. And they essentially speak for God. Does that make sense? It's kind of their role in that. But if you look at history, God has been speaking to humanity in a lot of different ways for history. But in Jesus, he gave his final word. There was no more that needed to be said after Jesus beyond, I've made a way to you. And there wasn't a need to trust another human to carry God's message to you anymore. He has written his message. And it's in the person and work of Jesus. It's in his word that all culminates to that, if that makes sense. And so what is the difference? I'll tell you this. The similarities are closer. But the difference is that rooting in this, God made a way to you and gave his final word through the person of Jesus. And so when we trust that, we don't live a life that says, well, if I live this life, I will get closer to God, it's up to you to respond. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. It's not I have to check all these boxes to level up spiritually. And I'm not saying that Catholicism really hardcore leans into that, but in the shadows of it, it might at some times, depending on where you come from. But in Jesus, it's trusting that he's the one that did the saving, not me. And again, that's a super bullet-pointed perspective on that, but we don't have a lot of time, so that's what I can give you in a short burst.